sure you want the rest of it?
Dirty Harry Minute. Dirty Harry Minute. Dirty Harry Minute Podcast. Dirty Harry Minute Podcast.
Every penny's worth.
Welcome to Dirty Harry Minute, the only podcast in the world to review every minute of the 1971 Warner Brothers classic Dirty Harry. I'm one of your hosts, John, and as ever I'm joined with
Tim?
Trent?
and our guest, Ben. How are you, Ben?
Good, thanks.
Thanks for coming back after previewing the trailer all those weeks ago.
My pleasure.
Well, this is minute 6. A minute begins with the shell casing being put into a yellow self-addressed envelope and ends with a man in a darkened room asking what goes on in their minds. What did you think of this movie, Tim? This minute, I should say.
Pretty good. It's transitions from the first, I guess, scene to the second. But it's I guess interesting because then you start to learn a bit more about the who that killer on the rooftop was and what he wants.
A bit of a contrast there. It goes from bright San Fran day to this darkened room.
Because the Zodiac did that, didn't he? He actually sent letters. So that's...
Yeah. Well, I was going to say that's that shot of reading the letter is the one that was in the film, Zodiac. Like, as in, I think it featured as a scene. So I don't know if this is a good point to go off on a tangent about that film because, I love that.
You're a big fan. I'm not sold on it, but that's why we have our guest Ben here.
I can't.
Did you read on Wikipedia that Terrence Malick was one of the writers, apparently, that took a crack at this?
Yeah.
And I kept thinking, what would the Terrence Malick version of this be? And it'd be Zodiac, wouldn't it? A long, sprawling story about many different characters and
Yeah.
I think Malick's first, his version of the script was more about the vigilante killings that they recycled later for Magnum Force. That was his actual idea.
Oh, okay.
John, why don't you what's your impression of Zodiac? What makes you not like it, or do you have?
I just remember it being I don't know. Dirty Harry's my obsession. So when there's that scene of them in the cinema, I don't know. I was like, I'd rather be watching Harry now. It was a long slog. I will watch it again for proper review of this movie.
I didn't like it initially either. I think because it's deliberately unsatisfying. And but do you think because that movie features Dirty Harry as saying that they were to some degree sort of making light or making basing it on the Zodiac killer. Do you think it's important though that it's fairly loose, really? And then when you look at the movie, you could kind of, if it wasn't for a couple of references and being set in San Francisco, it would have almost nothing to do with the...
Yeah, that's right. It's just
Zodiac
the most
killer.
obvious background at the moment.
Do you think
it's
that
really
takes
a
away?
jewel? Does it take away? Well, I'm not a huge fan of real-life murder mysteries and so forth. I like just the one-on-one sort of almost Western duel between two killers. One with the badge Harry, yeah. And obviously this movie dispenses with all the cryptograms or whatever, the real life, the cat and mouse sort of thing.
See, maybe that's where I've loved Zodiac is because after seeing this, as when I was younger, I think came across the fact that it was based on or inspired by the Zodiac killings.
Right.
And then I started to sort of do my own research back in the early days of the internet. And the fact that it was still unsolved kind of intrigued me.
Yeah.
And that those, like you say, the cryptic crosswords or whatever. And
they were safer days in the internet where
Yeah.
you weren't shot down for your theories.
And so to see that put into a film, I was actually wondering, well, how do they resolve this, knowing that it doesn't really get resolved? And the film's actually, the reason why I love it is because it's actually more about the obsession with solving a case.
Of course, Harry's equally obsessed, but he knows who. It's like they say, a stitched-up case. We know who the murderer is at every turn. It's just the law that's the obstacle.
Well, John, not to harp on about Zodiac too much, but I also just came across an interesting article about the Academy Award-winning director Guillermo del Toro.
Yes,
he loves the film Zodiac. Ooh. So he apparently tweeted. I won't bore you with all his tweets, but he basically had comments about Zodiac in 13 tweets. So I'll read out some of the more interesting ones. The truly great movies have deeper roots. In the case of Zodiac, all the formal elements become a quasi-hypnotic all. It lulls you into a different world and takes what was real and makes it symbolic. It puts you in a trance-like state that makes everything operate at a deeper level. All actions on screen become equally important. This is extremely difficult. What I mean by this is you watch a dinner scene or a tense basement exploration with the same enraptured attention. Tonally, the film is of a piece. It is a unity of cinematic space and reality. It transcends all its individual elements, and thus they become unbreakable. In this rarefied strata, only a few films exist. Blah blah blah.
That's for Zodiac and not for Dirty Harry.
You heard it here first.
But the best comment, which he actually wasn't part of this original tweet, but he had later on. Zodiac is a one-sock movie, meaning you're getting dressed, you catch it on TV and sit down, one sock in hand, and watch it until the end.
Oh yeah, fair enough.
Well, that Harry ticks all those buttons for me.
Well, I don't disagree.
I've really got to see. Have you seen Zodiac, Trent?
Yeah, oh god, yeah, I loved it.
The other thing that was on that that I thought was interesting on the Wikipedia was that God, was it somebody else who was offered the role or like was up for
Sinatra.
No,
John Wayne, Robert Mitchum.
No. God,
Paul
damn.
Newman.
No, he was in The Leopard and Sweet Smell of Success.
Burt Lancaster, yeah.
Burt Lancaster.
Yeah.
And I reckon like he would have been great. I reckon he would have said the like the famous
Do you
line
feel
of,
like,
like,
do I feel lucky?
do you feel lucky, punk?
Yep.
But I don't think it would have like it would have been as big a movie.
Yeah.
No,
That,
exactly.
like, you know, if he had made it at the same time, it would have just been, he did some old man crap at the end of his life.
Yeah.
Whereas this, like, made Clint Eastwood. So do you think you would like the movie as much if it didn't feature Clint Eastwood?
Probably not. I don't think I would like it as much.
What was the moment you remember, John, when this resonated with you?
Just the first time I saw it in film and TV studies, and it was just, I don't know if it was the atmosphere of it being a 70s movie and the whole the photography and the music. I
Were
don't
you
know.
a Clint fan before this film, or
No, not really. I think this is what triggered it all off in '98.
I mean, this and Pink Cadillac,
Yeah.
Space Cowboys.
well, Ben? Going back to your question, if with any of your favorite films, would you still like it if they had a different, crew or cast in it?
Yeah,
it's a hard thing to answer.
Change one thing, change
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
But I could kind of see...
What if in Alien, John Hurt's character was played by Anthony Hopkins or something?
Yeah,
That's a bad example,
I
but
mean,
that's something
like,
different.
I could kind of see, the same actor, like, doing, other actors doing as equal good job.
Yeah.
But I could kind of see this movie being made 10 years earlier with,
McQueen.
God damn it, I forgot his name again.
Burt Lancaster?
Burt Lancaster, and just being a kind of straight up,
Almost forgettable.
black and
Yeah.
white cop show. And I was going to ask you about the lighting in this. Like, we obviously had a shot just then of the projector, but it was fairly natural in terms of the change from, flicking on the lights. But the scene outside as well, when they're running around at night, was this movie like a step ahead in terms of its look to other cop movies that had preceded it? Or was it just the fact that it happened to be, going with the flow?
I think it's, but... Trent, sorry.
I reckon it's going with the flow.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean,
There's nothing novel here.
Bullet
Yeah.
kind of looks similar in San Fran.
Oh, okay.
4 years before.
So they'd gotten better at sort of night shooting. They weren't doing.
Is there
like-
much night shooting in Bullet? I can't remember. There's a lot of it in here.
I'm trying to remember.
Everything's bright daylight.
I think
In this or dark, really. isn't it?
Yeah.
you still have to credit. It still looks great. As in, I think it still stands out.
Yeah.
But whether it's groundbreaking or maybe not,
Yeah, definitely. Like seeing it on DVD. I mean, it's got a lot of very muted tones most of the time, sort of greys and browns and tans and sort of stuff like that. But the bits of color that are there, blood or the guy that's being the gay guy that's being looked at
Targeted,
through the scope, the purple of his clothes and stuff, really pop on DVD much more than I remember them on like VHS.
Back to minute 6. I didn't have a lot of notes here, but I noticed when he's putting the bullet into the bullet casing back into the envelope, Callahan's spelt with 2 L's. And sometimes later on in the sequels, in the credits and novelizations, they spell it with 1 L. So
Is there really a novelization?
yeah, there's one of the first 3 anyway.
I think obviously that letter he writes is the sort of main thing in this minute. Did you guys get the sense that, I know with the real case, like they made the handwriting looks almost identical to the real Zodiac killer, and the handwriting looks very childish, which almost gives a sense of the madness of the Scorpio.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
it looks like it's texter almost as well, or like a crayon or something.
I think it's all like
that.
lowercase letters.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah.
There's
I
no
think they're
proper
trying to
punctuation.
hint. Well, maybe they play it 2 ways because maybe he might have a military background. He certainly knows the law later on, or how to get around it and get through the cracks. But I think you're right, Tim. They're trying to make him a bit childish. He's made the mistakes and he hasn't bothered to correct. He's just a real killer. You think would be methodical and anal. They go and retype it again. So it's he's made these
But the
childish
taunting
mistakes.
of the police is an interesting thing. Kind of gives it a different aspect.
You'd think he would have taken the shell casing if that was the case too.
Yeah.
Because it's a single shot rifle. He fires it once.
Hmm.
You think it would only have taken him like another second to pick it down. Or in fact, some of those like single rifles don't even eject the casing. So it's like, I'll deliberately leave this here. But
I'm really grateful that our first 2 guests are such knowledgeable people on ballistics and guns.
on Zodiac.
Crimelibrary.com, RIP.
Did anyone hear in the background, you heard the police sirens? Now, would you really hear it up from there, that height, the 34th
Yeah, I reckon
floor
you would.
would is?
Yeah.
All right, tick a box. Believable. We've also got the return of my favourite, I don't know what it's called, a pebble dash on the roof
Oh,
that I
yeah.
sort of associate with public swimming pools or the Hurstbridge line,
Yeah.
Victoria Street train station. Sorry. Yeah. Pebble mix, is that it?
What's the what's that? Is it like an antenna that the letter's connected to?
Yeah, that's next on my note.
was
It
wondering
only
about
appears to be one antenna on the whole roof. And would that just be for the lucky tenant on the top floor, or
Oh, it'd be for all of them.
it's?
isn't
I
it?
don't think it was big enough to like
Oh, I don't know.
all the people in the offices wanting to watch Night Gallery or whatever was big at the time. Was it big enough antenna to service the whole?
Maybe TV was still new back then.
Does that work? Like, the more TVs connected to the aerial, that like the signal becomes diluted? Is it,
No, I
like-
don't think so.
Then yeah, you could
Yeah, I
have
think
one,
you can just run off the one.
and then it would just have, maybe even a booster if it's like part of a whole office building.
Okay.
I think.
Was this movie entirely shot in San Francisco, or was it like?
Yes. I
suppose-
think later on Trent will have something to say about a studio shot, but yeah, pretty much all shot on location, and a lot of it.
Well, for all we know,
At
this
night.
room that the minute ends on could be a set.
Yeah.
I like to think the paneling, which is delicious. The wooden paneling is the same as
Oh,
the city hall, but
Chocolatey.
yeah.
Like grain. Mm.
And I was just saying, he's lucky the letter didn't blow off the roof, isn't he? I
Well,
suppose.
yeah. How was it? Was it punctured? I can't remember.
I think
Yeah,
it was clipped on.
I think it was punctured.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because if it had blown off, I assume he'd just have to shoot another girl.
At the introduction of these 3 men in the room, that, like I said before, I think I find it confusing with having a chief, lieutenant, and mayor. I think
Yeah.
I know I harp on about this quite a bit, but they could have probably just had 2.
That's right.
Yeah, considering one of them doesn't really even say anything, does it?
Yeah.
Through the whole movie.
I think so. Yeah.
The chief.
Do you find yourself more or less critical of this, John? Doing this podcast and sort of pulling it apart. Do you feel that it's
Nitpicking.
yeah? Like, do you like it more, or do it sort of? Because I'm not sure how I'd feel like doing this about, say, Star Wars. As
Well-
much as I love that movie, it's just. It reminds me of school when we had to like do essay. What was
Yeah.
Welcome to the Dollhouse, which was an excellent movie. One of the first time I watched it, and then by the end pulling it apart, it's like I don't think I've watched it since.
Yeah, I haven't.
I know what you mean, but maybe in a way Star Wars is more cliched, as in, I don't know. This is not the sort of film you would normally expect a minute podcast
Yeah.
on. So,
Well, I love talking about the movie
Oh, that's cool.
in
yeah.
any way.
Like the last couple. I mean, this is a tough minute to talk about. Really.
Yeah, it's just exposition and like.
Well, it's only going to get toughy from here.
yeah.
Oh, I can clarify. Last minute we talked about Harry chewing on the roof.
Yeah, he's
And now
chewing
I
the gum or
can,
something.
I've definitely picked it up now. I've seen him do
Definitely in the beginning of this minute, you
Yeah.
can see him, and then oh shit, he does that, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Was it Jesus?
Yeah. Jesus. That's right.
I do feel like watching it again, with sort of looking at it, trying to pick it apart. Do you get, I got the sense that the movie could have gone a couple of different ways. That you like even that thing apparently of throwing the shield into the water at the end was very much sort of not part of the original concept.
Yeah.
But became so iconic. Is that the connection between that and the very beginning of the police putting their life on the line? I don't know. It just seems like it could have been a movie that was about being a police officer more than it is, or even like
Well,
the law.
Isn't that what this movie is about?
I don't know. Like it seems
obstacles?
like his frustration with say the law protecting this guy afterwards.
Do you mean more about the character?
Yeah,
or
that if
them?
that had happened earlier in the movie of like the guy being caught and then
throws the badge away.
of trying to sort of do something about this, but knowing exactly who it is.
No, you're right. Yeah.
Less cat and mouse, more sort of
Well, you know what you could do, Ben? You could get all 5 films, cut them all
yeah.
into one.
Well, yeah, they might be able to do that soon if you got enough of a character's performance. Get the AI to just so when they can replace Kevin Spacey out of all these old movies.
Which I just watched last week. All the money in the world.
Is there any performer in this, John, that you would get replaced by AI in this entire film?
I don't know. Maybe the bus driver at the end.
Oh,
I don't know.
What would
I'd
it
like
do?
to replace her with Sideshow Bob, I think.
I thought you were going to say replace her with yourself.
I prefer to be the guy in the Seagull Magnum Force. So, Bob!
Oh my God, it's a bomb! That guy.
Well, Ben, Recastorama, if they remade this today, would you...
what do you like? Do you reckon they will remake it? I mean, they just did Death Wish. I don't know how.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, with
I
Willis.
don't want to know. Don't want to know about it.
Bruce Willis.
Do you know if it was successful?
No, no idea.
I love this mayor character, and we only get to see him twice. I've just written down here, mayor, question mark, exclamation mark, dandy? Is he a dandy or not really? But I'd probably recast him with Ray Fiennes, I think. Sort of his M role.
Harry?
The mayor.
No, the mayor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Who'd you get to play Harry?
Bruce
I haven't really
Willis.
turned my mind to that.
Of
Bradley Cooper?
today's-
Bradley Cooper?
I know.
No.
Scott Eastwood.
What about the lieutenant? Who'd you get to replace Harry Gardino?
If he was 2 decades younger, I'd go with, and pre-Me Too, Dustin Hoffman, maybe? I don't know.
What about Colin Firth?
Yeah.
All right. There needs to be a love interest, though.
Well, Callahan.
Can you imagine Ruffalo in this movie as anything?
Maybe he could be
Chico?
the
Yeah.
Chico.
Oh, God.
And John, most importantly, who would you get to play Scorpio?
Yeah.
Who is unhinged? I don't know. Your idea, Ben?
Charlie Sheen.
We haven't made the obvious Dr. Evil joke about the amount for ransom that he's charging, 100,000.
100,000.
Which brings us to our new theme, inflation calculation. Inflation. $100,000, which equates today to 616,000. Tim's our accountant; he'll qualify that.
If he'd invested that money properly back in 1971.
Imagine the Bitcoin you could have bought back then. Jesus.
He could have got in on the ground floor of those subprime mortgages.
I also noticed the mayor puts a weird emphasis on morning, tomorrow morning. Did you pick that up?
I didn't.
Tomorrow,
Just
yeah,
struggling to read
tomorrow
or
morning.
What's the actor's name who plays the
John Vernon, the man.
Yeah, before he did Animal House, did he do a lot of comedy, or is this a Leslie Nielsen sort of situation?
I think it's a Leslie Nielsen.
Oh, really? Because
Like,
he's great. But now I can't watch this without kind of feeling he's doing it on the sly, like sort of, playing it for laughs.
I like the last shot we see is just of the, I assume, in-house projectionist the police have, or did cops have AV guys in those days?
They do now. Yeah. I'm for a job in that department like 15 years ago. So the 15 years ago, maybe they don't have.
I wonder how difficult it was then to take a photostat of the letter and put it on a slide. Like, did they take a photo of the letter? Well, that's pretty much all I've got to say about this minute, unless anyone has anything else to say.
Yeah.
I got more to talk about, but does that have to concern this minute?
It has to concern this minute. Will you return for the next minute, Ben?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Maybe in a few weeks, few days. Terrific. We'll catch you next time on Dirty Harry Minute. Dirty Harry. Dirty Harry Minute. Our wives will kill us. The Scorpio still survive. Is Anne Mary Deacon